Please rise for silent invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And during invocation, please keep in mind the people who have suffered and died and are suffering now from COVID-19. Let's keep them in our thoughts and prayers.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
We'll wait for her to unmute. Excuse me.
Present.
All right.
Councilmember Tremont.
Here.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Here.
Mayor Burnett.
Here. Let the record reflect that the first two participants are here with us virtually, but fully to participate in the meeting as it has been called and agended. Robin, I asked you if you would to read the rules of participation so that people know moving forward how that they can participate in our meetings.
Sure. To view or participate in any of the city council meetings moving forward, citizens can either watch the meeting on live and not actually participate, but just watch as normal, which is Spectrum channel 498, or through the city's YouTube channel. They can either get with me for the link, or it's of course just a link on our website. They can also watch the meeting online and provide public comment prior to the meeting, which means they can watch the meeting as discussed on the Spectrum channel 498 or the YouTube channel, and also provide written comments by emailing me at least 3 hours prior to the meeting, or they can send it in by regular mail to the city hall here, or we have drop boxes at both of the entrances, upstairs and downstairs, at City Hall. And they would just need to include their full name, city of residence, comment, whatever their comment is, by the deadline, and we'll read it into the record here at the meeting. And they can email that to cityclerk@fort-orange.org. And of course, the time limits of the no more than 3 minutes would still be in effect. So make sure that you fit into the 3 minutes. But there's also a link, a form on our website that can also be submitted electronically. The third way would be to participate, watch the meeting online as previously discussed, and provide public comment during the meeting, which would require a request to me at cityclerk@fort-orange.org 24 hours prior to the start of the meeting, so that the Zoom meeting link and information, password, and all of that can be provided to the public, the individual who wants to participate live. And all those instructions are linked on this agenda on our website.
And the point is that certainly you can participate in person if you wish, but the whole idea is that you don't have to feel like you have to risk your health to be able to participate and be heard and participate in your government. And there are no public comments on consent agenda items, so I would ask for a request, a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a proper second to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye and holding up your hand.
Aye.
None opposed. Everybody said aye. So we have an agenda for the meeting tonight. We have a motion in regards to the consent agenda items 6 through 10.
Could I like to pull 7H for discussion?
7H, you gonna make that motion to pull 7H?
Move the pull 7H for discussion.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any others? If not, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
Move to approve the remaining agenda. Consent agenda.
Items 6 through 10 minus 7H. May I have a
Yes.
second?
Second.
Call the roll?
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. 7H, Drew?
On this, this has kind of been a long time coming and timing wise, we're about to approve a $1.2 million purchase with the fees and everything. Coming from fund, this is coming from fund balance, correct?
It is. If you recall, during the budget season, we agreed that once fund balance got a little more settled, that we would look at the percentage where we were and what impacts capital improvement and unfunded would be. We took a look at this. As you're well aware, we're under an option contract that was running out. Not to say that walking away from the option money would have not been an option. I mean, it would have hurt, but not that bad.
Yeah.
That we asked council if you'd like to go ahead and execute this. We agreed in principle to go ahead, so we that's where we are right now. So yes, bad timing.
Yeah,
But fund balance.
that's where my concern lies, the timing of it. I realized, it was approved. It's necessary, but looking at it, I heard, I think you and the mayor discussing possible reductions in service and perhaps layoffs
Yes, sir.
or not filling positions. And I just don't want, if we do this, I don't want to see somebody get laid off because and I know the fund balance isn't affecting our budget.
Well, it could, because we may need it to make ends meet, but keep in mind that we're all pretty familiar with this property and where it is and its value. I'm not saying I can sell it tomorrow, but we're already starting to discuss what we're gonna do with it and the possibility of getting that money back somehow, payment in kind or elsewhere, will lead you in the direction you wanna go. So that is the only reason it's not something that's money gone. We now have land, we can sell that land.
I just don't want to sit on it, and I get it, we can't market it,
Absolutely.
we can't market it until we possess it. It just, I just don't, if we have a busy hurricane season and, we're all over the place with reserves and reaching from, I just hate to see anybody get laid off because, we bought a piece of property and we had a pandemic and we had a bad hurricane season.
So I'm not saying we need to lay off, I'm saying that I've heard the word rollback and worse from many people. That will be a deciding factor. Having said that, I can probably dump this property fairly quickly in the near next 12 to 18 months if I needed to.
And we have, one was, there's a lot of openings, right?
Openings.
Like around the city,
You're
All
talking
our
about
positions
personnel.
all our
Yes.
positions are filled, right?
Correct.
And so, I just, looking at what could happen this summer, I'm just concerned that I realize this property needs to come in our possession. Right?
Yes, sir. And so that finance and budget discussion that we're having where layoffs could happen. I hope they don't, and I don't expect them to. We have 2 union contracts. Those will play into that. There are so many variables that play into our financial picture for October that we're gonna have to deal with. And keep in mind that our reserves we are in much better shape than 90% of the cities in Florida. So this is a risk, but it's a calculated risk. And it's not,
Everything's a risk.
we're not buying something that's gonna depreciate, we're buying something that will be needed, appreciate, or could be traded for other things you need.
Okay, and then,
Yeah, I can't make it any prettier, it is bad
and
timing.
yeah, it just, appearance wise, it's just like, but, I realize the need for it, I'm just concerned moving forward.
As am I, I'm
Okay,
maybe not as concerned as you are, but yes, I believe me, I'm right with you there.
All right. Make a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baston,
yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Citizen participation non-agenda, we have no requests, nothing sent in, Rob?
That is correct.
Okay. Council comments. Why don't we start online, virtually? Councilman Tremont, what you got this week?
I'll be pretty brief. I'll just read a short response from Victoria Fallberg, Dr. Fallberg, our First Step Shelter Executive Director, just to give a heads up, an idea of what's happening there. I didn't see it on the agenda, so I put it in here. I had requested her to give me an update as to what's going on inside the shelter, as how are they addressing Corona, and how they're keeping the residents safe in there. So she says in the last month or so, they've been laser focused on developing procedures to keep the residents and staff protected from the virus. It's challenging. Our residents are sleeping, eating in recreation areas in the same area. If one resident gets the virus, it can spread easily to others. Many are older and immune compromised. Many have underlying illnesses. The potential consequences here could be dire. As a result, they put in many procedures into place to prevent contamination. They stopped intakes about 3 weeks ago, probably 4 weeks ago at this time. They do not have volunteers or anyone other than staff coming to the shelter. Every day the residents get their temperature taken and have a health screening. The staff has their temperature taken prior to entering the shelter anytime they come and go. We have stopped intakes. Service provision outside of medical care is also at a standstill. They do have healthcare providers on site throughout the day. We have new procedures for the kitchen. They're using gloves and masks, encouraging hand washing regularly. And some good news, they have a total of 9 residents. Actually, that is up to now 11 residents who have gone into housing, 3 of them just last week, and 1 more scheduled for May 1st. And we are currently having meetings, virtual meetings as well. The safe zone is moving forward. Roseanne Tornatore's generous contribution to that has really spurred that along. Designs are up and running. I've always been of the opinion that the safe zone as is being designed and proposed will likely not be used to the extent that some are predicting. However, the good news is the way in which this has been designed. Roseanne has worked very, very well with the architect to design this in such a way that should that particular area not be used as a safe zone, it can be utilized for something else and converted to not just a wasted area. So that is good news. That's all I had. Just wanted to give you a fresh update on the first shelter.
Okay. And Chase, this is Jake. Just to verify, the safe zone still will be, as far as we know, Pottinger compliant?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's well, regardless if it's going to be utilized in that particular area that it's designed for, that will not negate the fact that we will have one on site somewhere.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I think that that's important. Otherwise, why do it in the first place? Why do it at all?
Where do things impact?
Well, and the reality is, if I weren't representing the city of Port Orange and I was just on the First Step Shelter Board, I'd be advocating not to have a safe zone because it's not in the best interest of the shelter itself. However, the promises that were made before Port Orange's participation, the carrot stick that got us to bite was in fact that there would be a safe zone. So therefore, we will certainly have it. All the board members are committed to keeping that promise that was made even before those board members arrived.
Chase, Marilyn has a question for you.
Yeah. My recollection is, looking at the statistics from our police department, there have been no admissions of individuals from Port Orange. Is that correct? Jake?
Correct. Yeah, I'm looking at that same thing, and every time I see it, I wonder, well, what's Port Orange doing with this? But at the end of the day, I guess it's probably the most cost-effective way for us to maintain compliance with the law. But I've noticed that as well. Port Orange has not had to utilize that, and that could be for a variety of reasons.
And I think without the Bert Harris compliance piece, Bert Harris,
Wrong.
wrong piece, Pottinger compliance piece, we lose the carrot versus stick portion of policing with that. Bert Harris, whole other deal. Never mind.
Just to let you know, and I don't know if Chief's gonna chime in, but we for our homeless, we have asked the standard characters that you know well, whether they're willing to go. And as a matter of fact, I've talked to a few of them, and they're just not interested. Right now there are some items that you need to comply with to get in the first step, and our standard batch of characters are not willing to do that. So until we get that safe zone, which will then have a place, we're where we are now. We had talked earlier about maybe having a safe zone in Port Orange, but if you recall what happened at Daytona on the corner there, that was hard for them to get rid of, and so I'm a little concerned that might happen to us if we get started. So I'm very excited to get this safe zone built and start carting people out there as we're able.
Yeah, well, and I think it'll save us the amount of calls and headaches that we would get because as soon as we start advertising, if we were to advertise, we have a safe zone. The first question is going to be, hey, where is it? They want to know how close it is it to their home or their business,
Absolutely.
and nothing is going to be acceptable. Which I wouldn't blame anybody for feeling that way. I did have one more thing to bring up, and Mayor, I believe you brought this up. Probably about a month or two ago, and I just wanted to put it back on the burner in regards to our addressing the panhandling. I'm of the leaning that I'm would like council to consider that we look to adopt an ordinance very similar to the one structured by St. Augustine and by the city of Daytona Beach. I understand there's a risk involved, but I'm looking at there's still yet to be a challenge in St. Augustine. They've been at it for a couple of years now, and yet to be one in Daytona. Regardless, we take risks all the time, and there's always things associated with that. But at the end of the day, I'm expressing my public support for at least moving that conversation forward in possibly adopting that for the city of Port Orange.
That's on the May 19th agenda. And I'll ask Matt, I've already talked to him about it, but I want you all to, before that meeting, to read and clearly understand, and you can call me or Matt, the Daytona ordinance, to understand what it does do and understand what it doesn't do, and kind of apply it to Port Orange to make sure it's going to do what you want it to do. Because Daytona is not Port Orange. We do not have a main street. We do not have the districts that they have. And remember, they were trying to push homeless out of a certain area. We don't have a certain area where our homeless or our panhandlers congregate. So think about that as you read that and craft your thoughts for the 19th. But we'll get that to you. And I apologize. Panhandlers, not homeless.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good word, and I would agree with that, and that's why I would say to the close to what Daytona did. You're right, Jake. We're certainly not Port Orange, but I'm just remembering back to when we had that discussion regarding adult bookstores in the city of Port Orange, and you can't prohibit them outright, but we were able to zone it in such a place where it allowed us some. You get what I'm at. So that's the strategy I'd like to take.
And let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, because we're asking to have a discussion. We don't want to necessarily have the discussion until we have it on the agenda. Points well made. Chase, what else you got?
That's all I got. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Marilyn?
Yes, I think Drew's comments about where our budget may turn up because of the pressures from COVID-19, and certainly we know there's been lowered sales tax as well as gas tax, so our revenues will be less. I'd like to suggest, I'm less concerned about layoffs because I think there is personnel attrition, and I know that the manager right now has really frozen positions, so that creates, some savings. I think one of the areas we need to look at in terms of the rising budget is some of our capital projects. They may need to go out a little bit further, or perhaps they need to be less showy and grand than we might expect. One of the thoughts that I had was that Dunlawton is a gorgeous corridor with the crepe myrtles and trees. And I know we have an FDOT grant to put in palms and make it look more beautiful, apparently. But, I'm just thinking, well, they're footing most of the bill. We're going to have to pay for continued expense and some of the irrigation and things that go along with that. And it just strikes me that the COVID situation, just as it's caused people to think about what really is important and how much stuff do they need, it's really got me thinking about how grand some of our projects need to be. We have a beautiful city. We need to continue to do that. We need to continue levels of service, but we might really want to take a hard look and ask ourselves, in some of the projects coming forward, we may need the space, but might they be a little more modest in appearance, or some of the bells and whistles that we think we need? So I would suggest there may be some ways to economize about that. The other thing I would say is, certainly as the governor works toward opening the state and making decisions in line with national priorities, I would encourage everybody to follow those directives. I suspect that it's going to be a little bit like spring fever when things return. And I just remind everybody that we need to continue to social distance, wear masks, wash our hands, exercise caution. And finally, I would encourage everybody, support our local businesses. The Port Orange and South Daytona Chamber are working very hard for local businesses. And it's not just, the restaurants. Myself, I needed some yard work done, and it's something I could have done a little bit later, but I decided to do right now. And I used one of the businesses that was in last week's chamber virtual marketplace. And I would encourage others to do that. If there's things you need done, let's invest in our own community, because it's really going to help all of us out. These are our small businesses that are always there when there are charity events, or we talk about sponsors for our recreation teams. And I really think it's important we show them that we support them, particularly at this time. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Scott, what have you got for us?
Just echo, I got a couple things, but I want to first echo Marilyn's comments about small businesses. I think she's absolutely right. Now is definitely the time to support the businesses. One of the things, I haven't been out a whole lot in the last couple of weeks, but when I have had to get out, one of the things I see is that the businesses have gotten very innovative. They have figured out a lot of ways to take care of the local community and vice versa. So kudos to all of that. Couple of comments just to touch base on, and all these, not necessarily all these have anything to to do with city of Port Orange operations or the decisions we make. It's just things to keep in mind. What they call the reemployment assistance program through the state, which we used to know as unemployment assistance, that continues to be a program that is just absolutely train wrecked. It's horrible. It's great to tell people the assistance is coming, but when it doesn't come and it just keeps taking more and more and more and more time, it's an issue to keep in mind. And certainly, I do have every confidence that the state will get those folks their money that they're due, and that will come. It's just not coming as fast. So we just need to be mindful of that there'll be some lag time and some catching up there to do. Did see right before the meeting tonight that the Senate, federal government has passed another bill. It's another PPP, I think is how they're calling it, stimulus package for small businesses. I think it's a $500 billion bill, but there's about 350 in it, I think, for business grants, and supposedly maybe another 300 billion plus for some loans as well. On that note, again, it's another program that businesses, just like people are having to with the reemployments, getting online and trying to create these applications and taking care of things, that sites are just crashing, things not working out the way the plan is laid out. So there will definitely have to be some continued patience, as certainly there's going to be some lag time. We probably all saw that Volusia County Public Schools are basically done for the year.
Yes.
They're going to finish virtually. So I just want to keep the parents that are having to homeschool kids for the first time in our thoughts and prayers. Some of the stuff that the people post on social media will definitely give you a sense of humor and another appreciation for what our public school teachers do day in, day out, which is pretty cool. And probably most importantly, I wanted to just touch base on an email that Joni Hunt sent us today. She's the Director of Government Community Relations for Halifax Hospital. And she noted a couple of things in the email that I think are important to mention. And Jake, I did forward this to you and Christine. Some of the stuff on here might be really good just to recap and reiterate on our social media platforms. But a couple of things Joni wants us to know. Halifax Hospital is doing very, very well. They continue to operate all their 3 major locations. They do have a concern. They're worried that people with possible life-threatening illnesses or serious injuries are deciding not to come to the hospital out of fear for COVID-19. And they want to assure people that the emergency rooms are operational, they're functional, they're safe. They put extra protection measures in place. And if you need to go to the emergency room, they want you to go. Now, if you're on the fence and you're not sure, they do have a number that is dedicated that people can call direct. This number goes straight to the emergency room. So you're going to be talking emergency room staff. And that number is 386-425-1500. Again, it's 386-425-1500. Probably a good number just to keep handy. Anybody who's not sure, should I go to the ER, not go to the ER, that's going to be a great source. Also, I thought it was interesting that she noted in here that just about all of the COVID-19 hospitalized patients that Halifax has been caring for have been discharged and sent back home for the rest of their recovery. So that's refreshing to know that capacity has even increased more so than it has been over the last couple of weeks. So that's a good thing to see. And then she's got some other just comments on here, just general, continue to stay at home as much as you can, practice your social distancing, obviously the hand washing, all that stuff, following the CDC guidelines. There is a link on here for folks that want to make protective masks for caregivers and hospital staff and things like that can be shared, as well as a link for folks that are looking just to make donations to the Halifax Health Foundation. So appreciate Joni sending us that information. And Jake, you and Christine can take a look at that and kind of pick some pieces out of there and
Yes, sir.
continue to share that. I think it's some great information on there.
Too bad.
That's what I got.
Drew, what you got today?
Well, I was gonna mention the panhandling issue, and so I'm looking forward to discussing that in greater detail on the 19th. So
Yes, sir.
that's all I was gonna bring up. So
Yes, sir.
good.
Last week, the city manager and I did a number of Facebook Live broadcasts, one with the police chief, one with the fire chief, and then the last one with Parks and Rec, and Rec Man was there. It was It was it was fun. It was informational. Certainly, we allowed people to call in and send in their questions about anything to do with the city, but particularly our response to COVID-19. It was great to hear straight from Chief Fuston, straight from Chief Grimaldi, the things that we are doing to keep our people safe from COVID-19 as best as is possible, to minimize the impact that it has on them. We want people to know that public safety, while our approach might be slightly different than it is right now, the mission is as important as ever, and the city, we're not going away in that regard. We are going to have another Facebook Live broadcast tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock, I've invited Dr. David Billmeyer to come and sit with me, and we will broadcast and we'll answer questions, and he will talk about the health-related topic. And he's part of the Volusia doctors that are very interested in helping getting information out. So we're doing our part as best as is possible. Anybody who wants to view that can view that live on the Port Orange City Hall Facebook feed tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. And if you don't get to see it live, you can go back and replay it at any point in time. It will be memorialized there for whatever point in time you want to go watch that. And I think that is all that I have for now. Just to say, though, that this is the first time that we have gotten together to take care of regular business in about a month. And although the room is sparse and scarce and most of staff is not here, it's still good to see you all either in person or virtually. That closes council comments. That brings us to the public hearing portion of the meeting. Item 12 is second reading of ordinance number 2020-20.
-2.
I'm sorry, 2020-2. I looked away too quickly as I was trying to get item 12 up on my screen. There we go. I'm gonna blow it up because it shrunk somehow again.
I gotta find it again, then you blew it up.
I blew it up to 680%, but
That's
this
it.
is
got one more.
this is how I don't need glasses during meetings, and people don't necessarily know it. Ordinance number 2020-2 is an ordinance of the city of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, relating to comprehensive plan, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, amending the future land use designation for plus or minus 0.23 acres from urban medium residential, 48 units per acre, to office residential transition, providing for conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2020-2.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Comments, questions, discussion, council? I see a lot of heads shaking no. Final
Second.
comments? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Every time I click out of one of these, it shrinks back down again. There we go. Item 13 is second reading of ordinance number 2020-3, administrative rezoning of 1200 Spartan Avenue, 5700 Spruce Creek Road, 4020 Nova Road, and 3997 Nova Road, 4025 Nova Road, and 4031 Nova Road. Ordinance number 2020-3 is an ordinance of the city of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, rezoning property consisting of approximately plus or minus 0.23 acres from residential mobile home to professional office, plus or minus 4.16 acres from Spruce Creek Center Plan commercial development to community commercial, and 15 acres from planned commercial development to community commercial, authorizing revision of the official zoning atlas and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2020-3.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item is open for discussion on the floor. Second reading, comments or questions, council? Marilyn?
I just want to note that I did have a question from a citizen who had seen the posting, what was this all about? And once I explained it, they live in that area and they were very happy, thinking that this will permit other uses and really bring some economic development there.
Other comments, questions, or concerns, council? In that case, items ready, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Trayvon,
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner,
Yes,
Vice Mayor Bastian,
Yes,
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. That closes the public hearing portion of the meeting. We'll get a regular agenda. Item 14, Resolution 20-15 is approval of grant agreement for $200,000 from Volusia County for Echo Award 20-09 Airport Road Playground Park Replacement. Resolution number 20-15 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fort Orange, Volusia County, Florida, approving the grant agreement from the County of Volusia in the amount of $200,000 for playground replacement at Airport Road Park, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute any agreements or contracts and providing for an effective date.
move to approve resolution number 20-15.
second.
We have a motion, a second. Items open on the floor. Comments, questions?
Jake, is there any kind of an obligated match to this particular project? At
There
Airport?
is, it's all ECHO grants right now are a 50-50 match, so it's 200 and 200, and Susan will chime in if I was wrong, but I believe that's the grant, same with the next one. The reason these were originally on the consent agenda, but due to the financial situation and the conversations we've been having, we just want to make sure that the council's okay with accepting the grant agreement. The grant agreement does allow us to I'll call it kick the can, but delay 1 year if we need to. So I would like to agree to the agreement, to approve the agreement, and then work with Volusia Echo to extend if we need to. I don't want to do anything this year unless the forecast comes in and everything's rosy, which I don't expect it to be. So yes, there is a match, but we can delay a year. And although we haven't had any fruitful conversations with Echo, I've talked to other city managers offline, and I just don't see Volusia Echo. I don't want to say holding us to a contract, but not working with us to work through these ECHO grants, because we're not the only city that's in extremis right now. And there are certain stipulations, the amount of money that ECHO can keep in their accounts. We all know that the ECHO grant is coming up for another referendum vote in is it this year or 2022, I think. So the money needs to be spent. I'm not saying we have them over the barrel. I'm not saying they have us over the barrel. But I think it's in our best interest to participate in the grant. Now, the problem with that is our money, once we accept a grant, that $200,000 that is our match is committed. So
Well, from a budgetary standpoint, right now, it is committed.
It is
It's up to
committed.
us to uncommit it.
we'd have to uncommit it, and then we'd work with Volusia Echo if we were in extremis to the point where we'd have to kind of bail.
And where are we in design on this, as far as conceptual design?
The playground is, I believe it's designed already. We just need to, I'm waiting for.
Yeah, that's fine. I know.
She is typing, but.
So while you're waiting to hear back from Susan,
You bet.
just my thoughts is on Marilyn's comments earlier. This is a project that has not been approved to go out to bid or anywhere close, obviously, to awarding a contract. So this would be a project type that we could look at either delaying out
That is correct.
or
And that's why we. put
scaling it down.
And it is a design build, by the way. It is not design. So it would be a
Okay.
design build since it's a small project.
Right, okay.
So absolutely, which again, before COVID, it was on a consent agenda, but
Yep.
now we're in a different situation. So yes.
So we would have basically a $200,000 match to go with the ECHO 200 grant.
That is correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
that's all I got.
Marilyn?
Yeah, Jake, to what extent, let's suppose we wanted to be more frugal with the money. And so it's a $200,000 grant on our side and theirs. We get it and then we decide to trim a little. So maybe we only spend 150,000. Is that acceptable? And they only spend 150. I mean, if we,
I'm with you. Instead, build a $200,000 instead of a $400,000.
or a 300,000 instead of a 400, and if we return funds to them, so be it. I think that's in both our interests.
Yeah.
We do that.
So, and again, Susan's giving me the answer right now, but,
Hey, Jake, while you're waiting, Susan, if I can just chime in, I know we're a little hot,
please,
but
yep, go ahead.
Marilyn, the only thing that just came to my mind, so good point, but the only thing I got thinking about this is, in this particular scenario, since we're a donor city to ECHO, if we're returning funds to ECHO, we're sending them back our money to give to another city.
That will, and
So
if
that's
the
reality.
other city, if the other city can execute as well,
Right.
right? But
But that is an
you're
awkward
right.
thing that I just thought of, because we've been having that discussion for a while now about us being pretty much a donor city to
Yeah,
ECHO.
so in our
That's
city
awkward.
is one of the cities that's best postured to take advantage of ECHO right now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we don't know that, Susan doesn't know the impact of the grant if we went like Councilmember Ford. We'd have to check on that. And I don't think there's any obligation to approve this grant today. We can probably put it back on the agenda for the 5th and get that answer to see if we accepted for 200, but only spent, 120, 150 of it. Can we give the rest back? We can find that out and get back to you on the 5th if you want. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if indeed we are a donor city, then we should make the argument we're going to use the funds wisely and maybe use 150 and keep the other 50 for a project.
Wish it worked
I love it, but
wish it worked that way.
Well, I mean, it may be worth talking to our county representatives. Certainly they understand the concept of donors and a return on investment. I'm in favor of it. I just.
And I will clarify that the request is due on May 1st, and we delayed.
Well, I mean, I guess here's what I would say. I like to be frugal. Maybe we need to rethink our design so that we get the largest bang for the buck. There certainly are a lot of children and youth in this area, and also other people that use the tennis courts and things there. And so I guess what I'm saying is, let's use the money wisely. And if there was something that is sort of frilly that we thought we would use, let's put on our thinking caps and see if there's some other piece that might carry us into the future that would be a legitimate expenditure of those funds. That's what I'm asking.
And I'm with you. I think we're somewhat limited in what we can do after the grant gets awarded.
Right.
But Susan Lavallo and her team are always thinking frugally, getting the most bang for the buck, and coming up with some extraordinary ways to spend money wisely. And again, given the situation with COVID, recall that the Volusia ECHO is a board, but the approval of the money goes to the Volusia County Council.
Mm-hmm.
So those people aren't ignorant to the fact of where we all are, and are very understanding. So I'm not saying they'll give us some slack, but if we have money to give back because we did something smart, I don't think they'd say, no, you got to spend it.
That has happened before. When we built the multi-purpose field
Right.
for the football facility out of Karasi Park. Originally, that was acquired with in part with an ECHO grant. and we did not
We had
spend
people
everything
come
we
to
had
the table,
budgeted.
yeah.
And we had to return a little bit of money, and of course, that also meant we were under budget, so we were able to put a little bit of committed money back into the treasury for other things. So, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
In doing this part in this thing, could we, I mean, I think a wise use of some of that money might be some ADA compliant play options.
That's in the, that's in the,
Like kids in wheelchairs, they can't swing, so I know they make some sort of compliant thing.
that's
where-
already been discussed. and
Okay,
it will be
beautiful.
taken care
I'd
of.
like to see that and start including that in all the new designs of the parks that we do, so that
It's
there
Part
are
of our
options.
ADA transition plan.
Beautiful,
So, yeah.
beautiful.
Perfect stuff. Anybody else have anything else to add? Any comments, questions, concerns? If not, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
He's shaking his
Make
head,
the,
yeah.
let the record
Unmute.
reflect you now.
Yeah.
The affirmative.
There you go.
Councilmember Stiltner,
Yes,
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes,
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Item 15 is resolution number 20-16, approval of grant agreement for $400,000 from Volusia County for Echo Awards for the Rec Center Phase 2. Resolution of the City Council of Port Orange, City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, approved the grant agreement from the County of Volusia in the amount of $400,000 for Phase 2 of the Recreational Education and Cultural Center to create an arena, to create an area with significant focus on art-related offerings, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute any agreements for contracts and providing for an effective date.
move to approve resolution number 20-16.
second.
We have a motion, a proper second, the item is open on the floor for discussion. This one, very similar circumstances.
Very, very similar, but somewhat different because we've already accepted a $400,000 grant and encumbered or committed $400,000 to the rec. This is the additional second phase 2, which is 400 with another 400 for a total of 800. If you recall, we kind of had a working group over at Lakeside where we kind of bumped out the walls and made the gym a little bit bigger to account for some storage and some additional space. So that caused a little bit of bump in price. Again, we can look at how the finances look this year and delay this project a year if we need to. But right now we're in the same conundrum. It's going to be $400,000 committed, and we're already halfway there. So we're kind of in a spot. But again, I didn't want to put it on the consent agenda and get this one passed without some conversation.
Comments or questions?
You know, one of the things that's interesting, and of course, echoing the same comments from the last agenda item, but one of the things that's really interesting that we've talked about on this dais simply since I've been on here is that, you know, when we go through challenging economic times, that's a lot of the times when you're going to get the best price because there's a lot of companies that want to compete now. So it's kind of some irony there that, you know, when you're in those great times, like we just saw not all that long ago, we're seeing bids come through and there's one company, maybe two companies bidding, and the prices are just incredibly elevated, right? But every time we see a little bit of an economic challenge, what we see are those prices come down, the competition rises, we get better products, we get bigger bang for the
People
buck.
run back to government to get
Yeah,
it.
they do. Yeah, and so there is that is something we definitely need to keep in mind. I mean, we got to continue to serve the city, and a lot of these facilities, like our Rex facilities, they get used a ton, and even in difficult times, they get used even more. People aren't traveling, and they're not going to a lot of other places, and they rely on a lot of this stuff. And so, you know, this may be as odd as it sounds, this may be a timing thing that works out pretty good for us. We'll see once we get to the bidding portion of it, but hopefully that'll be the case, you know,
So one of
The
the
guy that
things,
picks up a shovel and picks up a hammer and has a job to work on this because of it
true.
is not going to say no either.
Very, very true. Very true.
so one of the things that Susan reminds me of is, you know, even if we commit the money, there's going to be a manpower tail to this, right? We currently have a gym. We're going to have a community center. That's going to That's gonna take a few more bodies, one manager and one parks employee, and a couple here and there. So keep that in mind that there's, as Alan Green used to call them, ANDAs, all the stuff in addition that's coming down. And we're almost, I'm not saying we're not gonna have to commit to that, but kind of, we gotta commit to that tail associated with it, right? So, something to keep in mind as we move forward. Again, I think if we needed to, we could throw all that money back at ECHO, say, sorry, force majeure, we'd like to get out of this deal and collect our portion of the committed back and see if we can make ends meet. But we just need to understand what we're committing to once we start with past the design, and DJ's gonna finish the design and move forward. I think that was on this consent agenda, to finish the design and move forward with the project. But either way, it'll be designed and ready to go if you choose not to accept the grant tonight.
Other comments, questions, or concerns? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Good discussion, everybody. Appreciate that. City attorney comments.
Nothing tonight, right?
Glad you can make it, Matt.
Good to see you then.
City manager comments. Jake, you have any agenda that you're going to update us on COVID-19?
I do now, yes. As the mayor mentioned, we've been in many conferences. The other day, I got up, I sat up out of my chair, for my last meeting of the day with staff. And I did it standing up because I realized I hadn't stood up most of the day. But between White House calls, which by the way are extremely informative as to what the federal government's doing as far as funding, to not so much the FDEM, they're informative, but they're short, they're sweet, they're in, they're out. But the governor has had some good conference calls as well. The state, and I sent you that email and an update from, I think, Sean Pittman today. But the state has started their task force for reopening the state. Everything that you're hearing from the federal government and the state government, it hinges on our ability to test, and it hinges apparently on antibody testing. Scott Stiltner and I talked a couple of weeks ago about, I think it was a UCF or a UF study, but Stanford did a more robust study of the same thing and realized, if the study is valid, that there's a lot of people that already have the COVID antibodies. And so they've either had the disease or had something close enough that can combat the disease. That isn't to say we're safe. That is to say that there's some promise out there that some of us under 50 without other conditions may be in a little bit better shape than we think we are. But that's for all the medical and the statisticians to figure out. So that's what's going to get us to where we need to go. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with a very small working group to discuss the possibility of a local, very low key, but local task force, Port Orange South Daytona Chamber type task force, to determine how we proceed in a uniform fashion with the rest of the county to open up. I did send that to you in an email as well, that the county has got a little working group as well. Alan Rosen's my point of contact on that. Excuse me, I gotta take this off. Point of contact on that. And the idea is that we open up as uniformly as we close down to the best of our ability. And the benefit of that is citizens aren't confused. Why did Daytona do this? Why did New Smyrna do that? Why did Port Orange do this? Why did Atlanta do that? If we're all marching in step, if you will, it's less confusion for all the citizens, and everybody's doing things the same way. I'm not saying it's going to work like that all the time, but that's the intent of the working groups. I imagine as we get some dates that the state is willing to open the aperture, that we will do a incremental approach to opening. I don't know how long that will take. It might take a month, it might take 8 weeks, it might take till January 1st. But I am committed to work with our fellow cities, our county, and our state representatives to make sure we do that in a fashion that gets the economy back in order in a reasonable fashion, that also takes the health of our citizens into account and protects those that are most at risk. We have a lot of little things happening around the city that are built in or are about to exist that will help us protect those people. There are food drives for those at risk. There are fund drives for those at risk. There are nonprofits that are already established that are willing to help those people. So I'm ready to set those people in motion at the right time to make these things happen. Some of them are already in action. So that's kind of where we are. Knock on wood, nobody on the staff has come down with the coronavirus yet. We are cautiously optimistic and doing everything we can to protect our citizens and our staff from that. Over the weekend, you saw a increase in ALF or nursing home assisted living facility positives. We're tracking that. We're watching the movements. Holly Smith at the county, who is the state medical liaison of the county, has assured us that everybody that is being tracked in and out of those facilities is being cared for correctly, and not just tossed out and left on their own. Not that I would expect anything else, but I think we're in a good place. That isn't to say, Mayor, as you mentioned at the beginning when we said our prayer, that there aren't those suffering and those feeling the effects of COVID-19. But here at the city, we're doing everything we can to make sure that is the least amount of impact that we can possibly help maintain. And I have one, just a clarification. There are a lot of things that you all can do, and we have links on our website for employment assistance, I think you called it. But I'd like to just reiterate or clarify that the CARES Act and the PPP is not an online application per se. It's through banks, through local banks. They may have online applications, but it isn't through a federal website. It's through a local bank, probably the one you do business with. So, and they're for the most part willing to help. I talked with our representative at ViStar the other day, and our representative with a different organization at Seacoast Bank, and they're all rocking and rolling now that they understand how these applications need to be filled out. They're filling them out, they're sending them to the federal government, and we're just waiting for answers now that new batch of money's been freed up. So that's my update on.
Jake, if I can just interject on that, if you would just double check on that, because the SBA.gov site is the site that they're sending to people to initially register that app for the PPP and the EIDL, and then I think somehow they get linked to a bank if it's because there's two different things. There's a grant they can apply for, but then there's also business loans.
The
So
business
depending on-
loan and the people, right?
Yeah, they get linked to a bank at some point, right?
You are correct, yes. And that loan has not yet been approved to be forgiven.
Right.
But every
Right.
expectation is, and every promise from the federal government.
But I
is
think
that we'll-
they still have to go to the SBA.gov to start, I think, the process.
got it, for the company I worked with to get one didn't, so
Okay.
I'll double
You
check.
know, all the contacts and stuff.
The bank's gonna get you there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you start.
Absolutely, and the links to do it right are on the city's website, the county's website as
Excellent.
well.
Right now, we have 366 positive cases in Volusia County. In zip code 32127, which includes part of the Beachside, there's still only 5 to 9 cases. 32129 has 11 cases, and 32128 has 14 cases. So those numbers have climbed a little bit. For the most part, we've been pretty fortunate. What I've been telling people is that just because our numbers are lower than everybody else's, you might live in Port Orange, you might work in Ormond, you might shop at Daytona, and you might be buying groceries for somebody, a loved one in Deltona. So the person next to you, it doesn't matter where you are, you've got to protect yourself. You've got to, whether it be sanitation, whether it be wearing a mask, fewer trips out of the house. That's the whole idea of the safer home order. There are a lot of things that we have and should be doing, and hopefully we will see better times sooner than later because of execution of that, particularly here. There's an awful lot going on. Just want to remind everybody, if you're not sure, go to the city website. Go to www.port-orange.org. We have a whole section on COVID-19. You click on that, we've got a ton of resources. If those aren't city resources, we may be directing you to the county, we may be directing you to the state, but we have a page where you can start to go find those resources. You can go to the Florida Department of Health. There is so many resources out there. With that in mind, one of the things that our police chief cautioned us about last week also is that there are also a lot of scams. People who are willing to help you get your stimulus dollars, the things that people do to prey on people anytime something like this happens. So I warn everybody, keep your antennas up. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, and we're here to help. With that, does anybody else have anything to add?
Of course I do.
Of course.
We originally were gonna have a budget visioning on June 1st, and we did that to make arrangements for the mayor to be able to go to Hawaii. The mayor, I do not think, I'm sorry, sir, is not going to Hawaii. So would you like to change that meeting back to May 26th?
I would like to hasten it if at all possible, particularly seeing is that I'm going to be spending my 25th wedding anniversary here with you all instead.
It's a workshop. We can wear Hawaiian attire if you'd like.
Oh, rub it in, thanks.
We can, I'll bring an umbrella, non-alcoholic umbrella drinks, whatever you want.
Personally, I think that with all that is going on, the sooner we start, the better. Does anybody else have any objections? Nope. May 26th it is. And for the record, that's the day before my 25th wedding anniversary. Coming to you, Marilyn.
With Marilyn around.
We'll wait for you to unmute.
Okay, there we go. I had on my calendar a council workshop next week. That's canceled, right? I had council workshops. Yeah.
It was canceled.
Cancel. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. And then I had pulled this for myself, but forgot to pull it from the consent agenda. We passed it. I just want the residents to know that item 10, we had discussed at a prior meeting that our fees, if somebody had begun work on a fence, garage door, shed, some other things without a permit, we may have been a little bit out of sync. So staff did look at it, and council took action today to lower all of those costs if you do something without a permit. Now, that's not an invitation to go ahead and do it. I still want to remind you that the permit is the least costly way to go. And what we did is, if you don't have a permit, we're not going to gouge you, but you're going to pay double what you would have paid if you had gotten the permit. So for example, a permit is $39. We used to charge $539, and we've now changed that to double the $39 fee to $78. But I just wanted to make sure the residents knew we were looking out for you, but we do want you to go ahead and get permits, because that ensures that you're getting work done by a licensed contractor, and you're going to get good results for the money you pay. That's it. Thank you.
Good comments. And if you're not sure, call community development. If there's something you don't know whether you need a permit for, call community development. Likely the answer is yeah, you need a permit for it. All the same, they are there to help. Any other business come before us this evening?
Real quick,
If not-
I didn't hear the end of Marilyn's question. I'm on the workshop for next week. That is not happening, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
That has been canceled. Any other business? All right, I'm dropping the gavel. Everybody have a good night. Stay safe, everybody.